The Morning Dump from Hurrdat Sports with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
You know what's absolutely crazy is when things just change over and over and over and over and over again. It's Morning Dump. It's the only place for extra conversation, extra thoughts given to certain points that we tend to see after we get off the airwaves in the morning. But if you would like to go back and listen to Coffee and Cream, you can do so. Go to your favorite podcast app, Apple, Spotify, search Hail Varsity Radio. You can find it there. But yesterday afternoon, DB, who's to my left, welcome back, DB.
Hi, AR.
30 minutes later from when we get off the airwaves.
Solving all the world's problems, Drew Down.
DB sent me a photo that he saw on ESPN of the line movement between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. It opened as KC 2.5-point favorites.
Crediting SVP.
5 minutes later, Kansas City was just a 1-point favorite. Then on Monday, it was even in the morning. In the afternoon tonight, Cincinnati was then favored by 1 point. And this was still in the mix of Patrick Mahomes and the unknowingness to his injury. Tuesday morning, it was Bengals 2.5. And then yesterday, currently, was 1.5, is what that said at what? When did you send me that text? At 2:45 in the afternoon? Then today, we talked to Brian Edwards. We talked to Cynthia Freeland.
Yeah.
We talked football a little bit. No change until about 25 minutes ago. The Chiefs are once again favored on FanDuel as a 1-point favorite.
-1.
On DraftKings, they are still a +1 play. But FanDuel, they are now the favorite again.
You know what's funny?
That you've never seen a line move this much ever?
So that's 5 points, right? Because we've seen 2.5 Chiefs, 2.5 Bengals.
Right.
So that's 5 points.
Because it went 2.5 to 1 to even to 1.
Bengals were as high as 2.5.
Yep,
minus 2.5.
Yep, and now it's back to 1 for the Chiefs.
Can you imagine for the folks to have gotten the middle that somehow have the Bengals 2.5 and the Chiefs 2.5?
And you know the odds for that right now are plus money.
Yeah, like what if it's a 2-point game and folks catch the middle?
The Bengals right now at -1 is plus 100 on DraftKings.
Yeah,
plus 100.
So right now, okay. So we've seen 2.5. So what would the house? So Vegas right now has to be cheering for the Chiefs to win by 3.
Because that's what it started at, and that would have been -110.
And it got bet way the other way.
Right.
So they certainly don't want a 1-point
However,
Chiefs victory or a Bengals victory.
However, when it got to Bengals by 2.5, the Chiefs by like +1 or say they took a -1. If you chose to take the alternate line, that was probably plus money too.
What's the total?
The total in this game is 47.5 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it is the same.
47.5. So that's 24-23.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, 24-23
That
game.
is a 24-23 game. Wouldn't that be something?
And why not? When Joe Burrow has beaten Patrick Mahomes every single year, he hasn't lost to Mahomes or Josh Allen. Why not set it up? Set the story for Patrick Mahomes to avenge those losses and do it in front of his own fans.
It's actually exciting, though. Right, I'm pumped. I mean, 2 games in which the total number ATS is 3. You have anywhere from 1.5 to 2 in the Eagles-Niners game, and 1 right now in the. I mean, a key numbers difference, 3 between the 2 championship games. Should be a fantastic
It's what
Sunday.
playoff football is all about.
At least I hope so.
It's what playoff football is all about. It was weird to see Buffalo as such a heavy favorite against Miami in the first round.
Big numbers. I mean,
and they do, but like if Tua was playing and situations were different for Miami, that number would have been a lot closer. But I'm saying, like, once you get to the playoffs, you're not used to seeing double-digit favorites.
Were you surprised that they announced that they're bringing him back not so quick because it's not till next year, but the announcement was Greer said quickly, hey, Tua will be back next year.
Right. Because Tua was kind of like 1 foot out the door for a minute there.
Well, it just seemed like he was so uncertain. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all based on him being uncertain. But for the most part, he's like, hey, I don't know what God has in store for me, but I just wanted to thank the fans right now while I could for being there for me. And then everybody was like, oh, Tua's not getting re-signed. As a fan base, as social media, as we like to do once we dive deep into social media, we like to assume things. We like to make assumptions and then just assume those are facts when they're not. Because, as you said, you could have a GM, a coach, whoever, come out the very next day and be like, no, he's our guy. he's sticking around. And then everybody goes to Twitter, I told you they would never get rid of Tua.
Yeah.
We love being keyboard warriors.
I know one thing. Quarterbacks potentially available on the open market are going to be interesting.
Quarterbacks, running backs, linebackers.
We don't care about running backs.
No.
That's what the league has told us.
Well, Lamar Jackson is going to be one of the best running backs available.
Allegedly, right?
He could be a wide receiver available.
So let's say L. Jack is in that discussion. Lance, maybe. Purdy, maybe. Garoppolo for sure. What are you going to do with Baker Mayfield? What are you going to do with what if your Chicago Bears are blown away by a quarterback in the draft? Is Fields on the move?
So you bring up an interesting point when you say Purdy, because it always had me thinking.
You probably don't move on from a quarterback on a rookie contract. That's a 6th-round pick, but you certainly could deal Lance.
Well, it reminds me, if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, it would be like when Nick Foles won the Super Bowl in Philadelphia.
Isn't Purdy a case for how Garoppolo started? Remember how Garoppolo showed those flashes and everybody was like, oh, go get Jimmy G. You know, and Tom Brady.
And because he worked under Tom Brady, and they're like, oh, he's going to be the successor to him.
Shoot, he was 4-0 there or something like that.
And it's you wonder, it's pretty easy to be 4-0 for that Bill Belichick team when Garoppolo was there. But he wasn't able to carry over that same success in San Francisco, even though for the most part he's probably got a pretty solid record. But the numbers just aren't there. But the numbers don't have to be there when you are in a Kyle Shanahan run offense. Now, that being said, when you talk about Trey Lance obviously has the bigger ceiling. That's why you take him 3rd overall in the draft. That's why you take Purdy late. But is Brock Purdy, this is what I would worry about. Is he going to be a guy that is like Tom Brady eventually, somebody that's taken late in the draft but then is going to have a great career? Or is he just a prisoner of the moment of how good that 49ers team is, how well coached it is, and he's not really the guy, even though we give him a ton of credit for being the quarterback there? Is it better for that team to get Trey Lance re-engaged and move on from Purdy and sell him high while he's at his peak? Or is it, hey, we move from Trey Lance because he's still young, he's got a lot of promise, and we'll keep Purdy because it worked? Those two situations are hard for me to kind of grasp onto.
Remember, and I was joking about on Twitter over the weekend about Brocktober. Is it still Brocktober and this, that, and the other? Which there's been a couple of articles on The Athletic about Purdy and his emergence. And so I went back and did my own homework. I just was Googling, Matt Campbell, Brock Purdy, this, that, and the other. Did we miss on Purdy? So I go back to an article here from September 11th, 2021. The title in the Des Moines Register: "We believe in Brock. Iowa State football's Matt Campbell backs Brock Purdy after 4th quarter benching." Right? He benched him in favor of Deckers.
Product of West Sioux.
Iowa State football coach Matt Campbell made two things clear following the 10th-ranked Cyclones' 27-17 loss to number 12 Iowa Saturday. Number one, Brock Purdy will remain his starting quarterback. 2, there is no quarterback competition taking place in his program. Campbell stood by Purdy and insisted that the quarterback who has started since his freshman year will remain atop the team's depth chart despite benching him in the fourth quarter to Saturday's loss. Remember, Purdy was a guy that never beat Iowa. Matt Campbell, up to that point, had never beaten Iowa, right? So it's just interesting how we have this revisionist history. Oh, man, Matt Campbell really couldn't win without Brock Purdy. Wait a minute. Matt Campbell had to stand by Brock Purdy, too, when it wasn't always rainbows and butterflies before Brocktober. So you can't really discredit Campbell and say that he hasn't done much without Purdy and not give Campbell credit for sticking with Purdy when Purdy wasn't always pretty.
Or Purdy.
Right?
For that matter.
It's just interesting how, and it's such low-hanging fruit sometimes to just glob on to recency bias.
Right.
Oh, man, how did everybody else miss on Purdy? Wait a sec. Let's go back to college. He did have a coach that had to, this was an issue. I'm not inventing this. Right? There was the Iowa State team that didn't play well early on in seasons. And as the article just said, he started since he was a freshman. It's a lot of games for an experienced
and that's a lot
quarterback,
of talent.
Right? So it's we can't just skew it to fit
right.
our argument, because one of the first simple Google searches is Campbell sticking with his quarterback. I would assume Brock is going to be our guy, Campbell said post-game. I think from the perspective of, man, do we put Hunter Deckers in to challenge Brock's position on our football team? Absolutely not. I think that we put Hunter in to do the kinds of things that will allow Brock to gather himself and really settle the game down and try to go win football games in the long haul, like the fourth quarter. We felt we could continue to stay in the game and had opportunities to maybe do that. It wasn't always rainbows and butterflies, right?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, my man.
Some people, it just takes a little bit for them to get it. Maybe it's just got to be, over and over and over. Like you were saying with studying, it's like you just got to study and study, and maybe benching it. And maybe Brock just finally has gotten it. He's to that point where he's got it.
Well, we've seen, we all remember Matt Flynn, right? So you have to be careful.
Right.
Right? Because it's not. But we also saw Tom Brady step in for Drew Bledsoe, too.
And take advantage of his opportunity.
Yeah,
and run with it. And so that's why I said,
I'm just going,
how do you treat this? Because you don't want to call Brock Purdy the GOAT by any means. But his path is similar to Tom Brady's path to this point. Yeah, Tom Brady just wasn't on a fantastic, or he wasn't a fantastic quarterback right away, but he was on a good team.
You want another article?
Go.
It's just a simple Google search. This is from October 24th of 2021 with the famed Brocktober. Matt Campbell calls out Brock Purdy's critics after quarterback has performance and win over Oklahoma State. They won. Purdy was impressive. I think he was 27 to 33 for over 300 yards. Why did Matt Campbell feel like he had to call out the critics?
Because he wanted his quarterback to know that he stood by him through the bad and through the good.
And apparently not everybody else in Ames was doing so, because Matt Campbell isn't going to go out of his way just to...
If you had Joe Schmo write an article like Brock Purdy bounces back
to stand his ground, right?
Yeah, after loss to Iowa or something like that.
It's weird how we misremember.
Matt Campbell does not, though. He remembers all of that stuff.
I don't know, man. You got to sometimes you got to give credit where credit is due. And maybe it's to both of those guys, and maybe they both needed each other, as opposed to separating one from the other.
Tomorrow we're going to talk and further this point because it's a great transition into the topic at hand.
And I was just going to throw one thing in there?
Shane, it's your show, man.
Yep,
you do
you're
what you
up.
want to do.
And out of those two quarterbacks, maybe one of them just got lucky. With the tuck rule, I think one just got extremely lucky.
There it is.
If it wasn't because of that, you'd probably have a totally different Tom Brady right now. He probably wouldn't even be playing.
You know, if they
would-
inflated the balls properly, like he wouldn't be a 6-time Super Bowl champion either.
So I would say Brock's got one up on Tom.
Yeah.
Just Tom has used that for a crutch. That whole organization.
Does Brock have a girlfriend? Is that why?
That whole organization, the New England Patriots, have used that tuck rule as a crutch, and that for their entire last 20 years.
So as I was saying in my transition process,
I love
thank you,
when
Shannon.
Raider fan goes to tuck rule, man.
So yesterday, and it happens all throughout the week. Yesterday, some coaches paid visits to recruits here in the area.
Oh, we're previewing tomorrow's show.
We are. And Matt Campbell has already visited.
He was here this week in the flesh.
And there were other coaches that showed up, but what's really fun to hear from DB, and I'm going to really set this up for those of you at home because you won't want to miss tomorrow's show. In conversations with recruits, some coaches know exactly what to say, what they want to accomplish, and have the plan laid out. But can you believe this for a second, that some coaches really have no idea on what certain position groups are thinking, how they're going to operate, and things of that regard? Can you believe a coach would be that upfront with a player, for one, to say that, and two, also not be prepared?
And are they the same thing?
Yeah.
Is not being in the know the same as being ill-prepared?
Right. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. I don't know if DB has the strength to name coaches. I don't know if he's just going to keep it general. But you know what? That's how I'm going to spice up tomorrow's show. I'm going to sprinkle the cheese on the Parmesan cheese right on top of our spaghetti and meatballs plate right now. And enjoy your meal. Because once you have your food hangover tomorrow, you'll get the insight from old DB is how he likes to address himself every now and then. It's Morning Dump. Find us on Hurrdat Sports. Find us on Apple and Spotify as well. And once again, if you missed anything on the show, go to Coffee and Cream. That's through Hail Varsity Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. He's Damon Benning, at Damon Benning on Twitter. I'm at Andrew Rogers TV. Thanks for joining us. We will see you tomorrow.